Hey, everybody, welcome back to All About the Game. My name is Todd Blyleven. I'm joined by my dad, Bert Blyleven, and my co-host, Dave Majeski. What's up,
Morning,
guys?
Todd. Hey.
How's everybody
Hello,
doing?
Todd.
Hi, Dad. It's good
Ready
to
to go.
see you
Good to be
again.
back.
Yeah, that's good to be back. We missed last week. Mike Micucci, he's finishing up some schooling, and he actually had a meeting with his professor at this time. So it's great for him. He's going back to school and getting some of those things done that he's been trying to do for a long time. So he'll join us hopefully next week. But Dad, we missed you. We had a great show talking about the mental part of the game and sports. But man, you must have had a blast. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, anytime you get a chance to go to the Hall of Fame, I actually went to two Hall of Fames over the last couple of weeks. Of course, when Derek Jeter went in, along with Larry Walker, Ted Simmons, and Marvin Miller. And then I went up to Minnesota and went through the Twins Hall of Fame, where they inducted Justin Morneau into the Twins Hall of Fame. So pretty lucky to be part of both of them.
That's awesome. Short story on Justin Morneau. And when we went as a family to see you one time in Minnesota, I think it was just a random trip. You flew everybody out there and we were hanging out at the ballpark. Dylan had to have been maybe 5 or 6 at the time. And Joe Mauer was sitting there talking to us. Dylan was sitting in the dugout. I was sitting there. You were doing some comment interviewing, I think, with your job. And then Delman Young came over. And so we were all talking because I scouted Delman. So you got Justin Morneau that just signed his big contract, Joe Mauer that just signed his big contract, and Delman Young that just signed his big contract. And they're all palling around with Dylan. Well, if you remember, they took Dylan up to the clubhouse for a while and got him just loaded up. But I remember Justin Morneau was he was one of the nicest guys, like just so personable. And one of those guys you root for that just has a successful career. I mean, you root for everybody, but some of those guys you pull for a little bit more. And him and Joe and Delman were just 3 awesome dudes. So yeah, that's really cool. You got to see him going to the Twins Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's back in the early 2000s, middle 2000s, when the Twins had really a good ball club with the M&M boys and Delman Young and some great outfielders like Denard Span and Ben Revere. Brian Dozier was on that ball club. H.A. Brzezinski, Torrey Hunter, of course, some great names of Twins past. But no, Delman's a class act as far as Delman and Justin Morneau. Congratulations to him being inducted into the Twins Hall of Fame. And I think next on the line is probably Joe Mauer. He'll be also in there too, probably next year.
Wow, that's awesome. So what was it like? I mean, Derek Jeter, right? Yankees, Cooperstown. I know it was a shortened trip compared to what you guys have normally done, but what was that like, being on that stage again? I mean, it's awesome probably to be there with all those great players that you played with or against at times, but to watch the fans' reactions to Derek Jeter getting in.
It was pretty good. Ted Simmons got up first and made a great speech. Very, very, very good speech. Then, of course, Marvin Miller is no longer with us. So Donald Fear, the former executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association, he spoke, and he kind of went a little bit too long. Well, the weather was it's supposed to rain, and everybody was afraid that it was going to maybe get rained out. And I'm sitting next to Bud Selig, and as Donald Fear kind of went on about 20, 30, maybe 40 minutes, everybody there, 20,000 people, 15,000 were Yankee fans. Of course, the longer he went and the gray clouds started to come over this arena here in Cooperstown, people started to chant, Jeter, Jeter. So I think Donald Fear got the notion that, hey, I better get off here. Larry Walker gave a great speech next. And then, of course, Derek Jeter finished it off with an outstanding speech. All 3 guys that went in, along with Marvin Miller, just class people. Ted Simmons, a great switch hitting catcher. A guy that was with mainly St. Louis and the Brewers. A lot of history, almost 2,500 hits for a switch hitting catcher, a lot of power from both sides of the plate. Larry Walker, of course, with the Colorado Rockies, most of his career. What a class act. The second Canadian to be put into the Hall of Fame, along with Ferguson Jenkins is the other. And then Derek Jeter, a guy that spent, 20 plus years in a Yankee uniform and didn't get into the controversial mix, I guess, that sometimes when you're in New York, everybody wants to write bad stories. It seems like, how he was able to stay so positive throughout his career, became the Yankee captain, and just a class act. And, he's still in baseball with the Marlins, but it was a very, very nice ceremony, even though it was only, a couple of days were allowed to stay in Cooperstown.
That's incredible. Just storytelling of who all those athletes are, and touching on who the individual is too. That's really cool.
Todd, I was wondering,
yeah,
speaking of the induction, there's a guy you might have heard of named Jeff Bagwell. I looked up a stat of his, and in one game, he had 6 base on balls. In one game, he was 0 for 0 with 6 walks. And do you know that those 6 walks in one game are more than your dad had in a 22-year career? 22 years, he didn't have 6 walks. Did they lower their requirements to get into the Hall of Fame? What's up with that?
I'll tell you what, Bagwell was not there. There were a lot of guys that were not able to be there, but hey, you respect certain hitters in a lineup, and maybe it just so happened he walked the first time, when he comes up, and you walk him. But then as a game, maybe this was a very close game. 6 times if you walk maybe meant an extra inning ball game. So every time he came up, you don't want that guy to beat you, because he's the catalyst of that offense with the Astros at the time. So yeah, you respect hitters. I never did, but you try to respect them for what they can do to make you lose a ball game. You got to be careful out there.
Well, instead of you walking somebody, you'd probably just hit them with the first pitch and get on with the game.
Well, yeah, they save about 3 or 4 pitches that way.
Right.
But nowadays, all you have to do is say, 4 with first base open, and you save 4 pitches.
there you go. Hey, and that kind of segues into one of the topics I was thinking about in sharing with our audience today. We touched, again, while you were gone, Dad, on the mental approach to sports and athletics. We, went into some of the parent stuff and things, but, Hall of Fame, you're sitting around. I mean, these guys like yourself have just achieved ultimate greatness at their sport, right? I mean, talking about the physical, the mental approach. You were always, I brought it up in the show, last week or 2 weeks ago, how, your approach when you cross that white line, and we've talked about this in the past, it was a switch where you were able to go from nice Bert, nice dad, doing things for the community, to don't talk to me, I will step on your throat, don't take me out of this ball game, I am the beast of all beasts. And how do you see that same similarity with the guys that you're rubbing elbows with in Cooperstown? And what was the secret to their dealing with the adversity? Because sports, life is a game of failure, really. I mean, you have to keep putting your boots on and you keep walking forward, always thinking positive. But sports is such a catalyst, like you just mentioned, where it can launch you, it can catapult you into a different mindset to help your workplace or make you motivated to go work out and become great in the game. So what was it that you guys think you share in common?
I think the biggest thing is you cannot be afraid to fail. As you mentioned, baseball is a sport that, you get 3 hits and 10 at bats. You're a 300 hitter. That probably gets you into the Hall of Fame if you play long enough. As a pitcher, sometimes the element, you can lose 2-1, you can lose 1-0. It doesn't mean that you didn't pitch a good ball game. I know when I first came up and I lost a lot of close ball games, I always took it upon myself that if I had pitched better and not given up that 1 or 2 runs, we would have won the ball game. So it made me work harder. I was never afraid to fail. I was out there determined to keep my club in the game, and hopefully late in the ball game, we could score some runs and we would win that ball game. But that's all you can do. I think the biggest thing is, again, kids, do not be afraid to fail. Go out there, try it. You can, even toward the end of my career, I always look myself in the mirror and say, can I get one more year in? I don't know. Will my shoulder allow it? Well, you know what? I can honestly say through all the years that I pitched, I never looked myself in the mirror and say, what if? I knew what I needed to do. I tried to do the best I could with it, and you go about your business. As a young kid, the same thing. Have fun with it, first of all. If you're 9, 10 to 14 years old, have fun with the game. Parents, let them have fun. Don't expect little Billy that's 12 years old to be the next Joe Mauer or Justin Morneau or Derek Jeter. Have fun with it. Make sure that they go out and you're there for their support. You're supporting them. But that's it. That's it. Let the coaches do their job. Let the coaches, most coaches, 99.9% of all Little League, high school coaches, whatever coaches, they are given 100%. Their loyalty is to the kids. So parents, stay out of it. Let them play. That's one thing, Todd, I don't think I ever forced you to play the game of baseball. And my dad never forced me to play the game of baseball. He built me the mound. He let me, maybe not mow the yard because I had a baseball game, things like that. He was always there for me. Sad to say, I wasn't always there for you because I was pitching somewhere or playing somewhere, but I knew that you had the foundation to go out and be the best you could do. And that's all you can do as a parent.
Well, I grew up loving the game, and I know me talking about my son with Dylan loves the game of baseball. So I think we've checked off on those marks where we haven't been those parents. I almost was, back when I was scouting and my job was to critique the heck out of players. That's all I did. Was I was looking for negatives. I wanted to see the positives, but then I brought that in when I was, coaching Dylan, and I was just too hard on him in terms of like, every time we go play father-son catch, get your arm up, da 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 da. So, but I was able to change that mentality, and we really, I loved watching Dylan play, and he's a senior this year, and we're talking about colleges, and he's getting recruited, and it's just hard for me to even imagine that he's not going to be here, so I can just take him to the park or whatever. So it's a hard lesson. But Dave, being a coach, I mean, you've coached for many years. You've dealt with a ton of athletes, both on the boy and girl side. When you talk about that adversity and having fun and that approach that my dad just brought up, what have you seen in terms of the player, the parent, and yourself go through different mentalities and working with different athletes?
Yeah, I love how we're getting a little off topic, but I'm glad you brought up the parent aspect, because from the recruiting standpoint, any college coach that comes up to me, they've already made their mind up about the actual athlete. Can that kid hit? Can that kid run? Can that kid pick it? What's their size? What's their drive and their energy? The first question always is, what are their grades? That's what they need to find out. But the second question always is, point out the parents. I used to think it was like a genetic thing. They want to see, is dad 6'5"? Is dad a monster? Is this 10th grader I'm looking at going to grow? And maybe there is something to that, but the more I figured it out, it was, where's mom and dad? Are they pacing? Are they kicking stuff? Are they always in the kid's ear? Because if they are like that now, that doesn't mean that kid on the field's no good. It just means that if they play for my college team, I'm going to have to worry about that person talking back behind my back, creating a negative atmosphere. So, when we're talking about the mental makeup of a kid, it starts with mom and dad. I have yet to meet a mom and dad. I don't care what the situation is at home. They want to please mom and dad. They want to do right. They want to make mom and dad proud. And if they strike out and they peek into the stands and they see something or they hear something, the kid is just not going to have fun with the sport. If they're not having fun with the sport, they're not going to work hard. It's just going to snowball in a bad direction. Same thing with coaching, of course, but it all starts with the mom and dad. And Todd, I've seen your kids enough. Just look at you and the way they interact. You're doing it right. The best story I have is my girl played college ball. She's in graduate school now, and she's studying her butt off. Once a week, I get a text message. Dad, can we have a catch? Dad, can we go take BP? Can you hit me some fly balls? She just misses that little interaction. That's her breakaway. That's her fun time. That's her escape from reality. Let me go play catch with dad. And I go, yes, I might have screwed up 500 other things, but I'll be right there, baby. I'll bring a bucket of balls.
And that was her field of dreams, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unbelievable. That it really, I love where you just went with that, because I think the biggest message to parents is to slow down and enjoy the moment, right? And enjoy the moment, realize that you're creating memories for your children. And regardless of the pressures that maybe they have as a lead athlete, or a kid that is really struggling, that's just wants to stay on the team, sees the future of maybe he's not or she's not going to make that particular high school team, or they're not on the best travel ball. What can you do as a parent? Like you just said, Dave, when you're sitting there and your child wants to please you, and you're frustrated or you're upset because they're not doing well enough, or you're upset with the team and your emotions that you have in the house, how does that affect your kids? So great lesson to just slow down and really try to take a step back and create that positive memory. I know, growing up, I had a lot of positive memories going to the ballpark with my dad. And that's what, I love that day, going. I knew it was business. I knew when that 5 o'clock hit, and all those players, and maybe the TV turned off, or players started, the clubhouse got a little quiet, that was business. But leading up to that, man, so much fun, that was had in that atmosphere. And
I think, Todd, as a parent like yourself, and what I went through with the kids, yourself and your sister and brothers, and now my step boys, you want the best for them. That's all you can do. You try to make it a positive environment. You try to go about your business, but as a parent, you're also very proud of your children too, no matter what they do, as long as they are moving in a direction that they feel comfortable in their environment. I can't control, I'm very proud what we're doing right here, the podcast. So we get to see each other on a weekly basis, and, get to watch Dylan through the videos that you send me, of him progressing and hopefully going to a college, maybe going through the draft. All these things are coming up for him here within the next year. What direction do you go? Well, I can't control it. You can't control it. It's on the outside. And for those athletes out there that maybe just want to play the sport, enjoy the sport. Maybe it might get you into college somewhere. You get an education paid for. If not, study. Find a direction that you want in life. And that's what sports does. It helps you win. It helps you lose. And when you lose, if you have the determination, I want to win again, then you're going in the right direction in life.
You just touched on something, and I think it's a really important topic to discuss, just for a few minutes at least, to where you can't play sports your entire life. And that's the hardest part, probably growing up as a kid. I mean, you put yourself in Dylan's shoes, or Dave, your daughter's shoes, or any of our shoes. When we were playing, we're playing. You're playing for all eternity. You're never ever thinking about beyond the dream of pitching in the World Series in the bottom of the ninth with bases loaded, and you're going to strike the guy out, or you're going to steal that base or hit the home run. You don't think about the afterlife of what happens afterwards. So I think it's important to educate our young minds that baseball or sports is not going to last forever. And what are your other qualities that you really enjoy? What do you enjoy in life outside of sports? I think sports can drive a certain passion, whether it's I love coaching, or I want to be a scout, or I want to be a salesman in sports products. I want to design sports products, whatever that is. I want to take pictures of athletes. It can drive certain job opportunities without you even knowing it. And I think it's an opportunity for parents to expose those skill sets as well. So we've talked about the mental approach in terms of the player and the attitude, and the mental approach on the athlete's part and the parents' play. Dave, I want to talk about a little bit more about the coach, the instructor, right? The mental approach to building those practices, knowing you only have a couple minutes to really work with athletes. Like Dad, like you mentioned, coaches are out there 100% trying to educate and give whatever they can, but sometimes it might only be one coach on the field. What's the best advice you could give to a coach that's maybe trying to win that championship, right? Limited in tools, limited in maybe experience, but man, they just want to get out there and help.
I think we could relate it to, the last couple of years of the World Series very easily. I remember people asking me, whether it's an interview or just informally, hey, you coached 10 years of high school. What was your record? You coached 10 years, 15 years of college ball. What was your record? And I remember telling this one guy 144. He said, 144 in what? I said, no, 144. That's how many high school kids I put into college. That's my record. He said, well, that's not what I was asking. And I said, we have two very different ways of marking our past 10 years. Of course, I want the trophy. I want to put a ring on my players' fingers. I want to celebrate. I want the Gatorade shower, but I'll show you the pictures of the weddings and the baby pictures, all the kids' lives I helped. That's how I did it. So, of course, there's the competitive nature. Any coach that says they don't want to win, they're crazy. They're lying to you. Everybody wants to win. It's why we play. So the question, how to get there, how to get the best out of the kids. You look at the curse of the Bambino, the Red Sox. How did they overcome that? They just started being goofballs and having fun. They had a group of them that they called themselves the Dirtbags. They started having pajama parties on the away trips. It took all the pressure off. So the pressure of winning in New York, the pressure of winning in LA. If you look to me, and this is one of Dave's crazy theories, how did the Cubs overcome all those years and finally win? They just had a bunch of goofballs that it's not that they didn't care. They just went about things a little differently. They weren't so concerned with the bottom line. I have to get a hit for my average. Now, of course, nowadays they're all getting paid $25 million. There's a little less to worry about. But to me, I see the more they gel and have fun and interact and relax and just be fun athletes, you can attribute that to high school trying to get a college scholarship. Now they're in college, they're on TV. There's a lot of pressure situations. The kids that just relax and have fun with it, like you said, Mr. Bert, those are the ones that are going to be successful. That's how you win the championship to me.
I was able to play 22 years in the big leagues. I can look back and Dave, that was well said, because I can look back and say, boy, I didn't want to be on this team. We had team chemistry, whether we won between the lines or not. We were 25 guys trying to achieve one goal, and that was hopefully win that ball game that day. But when that after the last out in the ninth inning, win or lose, you still are pulling for each other. And that's the big thing, I think, what sports does. It helps build that future for that young man that, hey, even though we may have lost and we didn't have the season we wanted, but I made some great friends. I had a great time when I played the game, no matter what sport it was. And I can look back and say, that's going to make me a better person in my life. And it usually does.
That's such great knowledge from two great guys right there. I mean, really, Dave, your story was awesome to listen to, and Dad, you just hit it out right there. So I know we started the show with talking about the Hall of Fame and Derek Jeter getting in and Justin Morneau getting into the Twins Hall of Fame, which is amazing. I didn't know you did that, so that's pretty cool. And then we go into the mental part of that mental approach, and we talked about the parents and the coaches and everything. And I think it's just really important to keep talking about these topics. That it's easy for us to talk about what happened, in the Dodger game, where he hits a home run and celebration and the Gatorade showers, Dave, and all the things. And I mean, that was super exciting. But after that happened, the camera was focusing on all the players and the hugs and the smiles. And even in that locker, in that club, in that dugout with St. Louis, you're seeing the disappointment on the faces. But Dad, you are so right in that once they put take their uniforms off and they get back on that bus, they're in it for each other. They're there to help and support each other through that adversity they're dealing with. And that applies in life. And so I'm really excited that we got a chance to talk about this today. Next week, we're going to have a guest. So I'm just going to tee it up a little bit. We'll have a guest that is going to help us understand a little bit more about technology in today's sport, which I think has always been a controversial topic as some sports have evolved in it and some sports have taken it and not really known what to do with it, and how it's affected decision-making processes in the front office, players' contracts and things. But I think we're just going to take a step back and learn a little bit about this piece of technology and have some fun with it. So,
Todd, I'm going to let you know right now, I'm not an analytic type guy, so I'm curious to hear what their thoughts are.
Yeah, I totally know that, and I think this is going to be a good one. But we're not going to dive into the analytics and how that's going to affect the players. This is going to be more of a technology play on how technology was really introduced or transformed in the game itself, to where parents and coaches and organizations at the youth level are now using these tools to help athletes develop and really learn more about their game, opposed to it being so stat driven, like Dave, you were talking about earlier, to where that drives you. Now it's more of a baseline and helping coaches understand how they can use these tools to develop athletes in a good way. So there's a lot of misnomers, and even today's bigger tournament venues and companies that are going out and using today's technology are not using it correctly most of the time. And there's a lot of kids that are getting numbers put on them that when put into a college search portal and coaches are coming in to find athletes based on that one number, if that number is not captured correctly at that event, and that user of, say, a radar gun is not using that properly and gives that kid a low number because of the lack of knowledge on how to actually use a radar gun, because you can't just go and point the radar gun at the field and it's going to take velocity readings from everywhere. That player will never get searched because of a user error. And so we really want to make sure, that's one of my missions in working with Pocket Radar, for example, is we're coming out with some educational tools to help coaches understand more about how to use and capture the proper metrics to help those athletes, because there's a lot of athletes that get those high numbers that shouldn't be seen. And there's a lot of athletes that are getting low numbers that really should be seen. And I have a great example and a story I'll share next week with a kid down in Houston that I saw standing around 5 coaches. His numbers were low. And all of a sudden I show this coach how to use the radar properly. His numbers are up to 87, 88, touching 89. This company that he was down there playing at was broadcasting he was an 84-mile-an-hour right-hander. Well, that's not going to get him recruited. These 5 coaches all went over and grabbed that kid's name after the game was over. And that organization, now that kid that was using the radar knows now how to properly angle that. And he was getting 87, 88, 89 at the end of the game. So that's the difference between using a piece of technology incorrectly and using it correctly to really help the kids out. So
Todd, are you saying with scouting now, years and years and years ago, you'd have, the bird dog going around scouting and it was his eyes. Maybe he had a stopwatch. Then as technology developed, then he had his own personal handheld radar gun. And then, I'm picturing that Clint Eastwood movie, Trouble with the Curve, where there was the conflict of the paper pushing analytic guys and still the old school guys with the experience, and the ball sounds differently off this guy's bat. Are you saying now that it's maybe not entirely on a spreadsheet, but it is so far shifted away from a scout's eyes, and this athlete is different, this swing is different, this arm is different? First and foremost is the spreadsheet and what the analytics say. Is that what you're describing?
well, if you look at the evolution of baseball over the last, 6, 7 years, I remember my dad and we had a conversation in and out one day after he had gone to a meeting with Fox, and we were talking about analytics and how they were starting to put the stuff on the teleprompters. Do you remember that, Dad? And yeah, and you see where Major League Baseball has brought in, and baseball has really been the forefront leader in presenting the analytics, even though people don't know exactly what it is. Still, you talk to a scout, what's the difference between bat exit velocity and barrel speed? Some scouts think it's somewhat of the same thing, and it's not, and that's okay that they don't know. But what's not okay is that their jobs are on the line if they don't get those numbers accurately, correct, because there's 25 analysts that are being hired by a major league club that are making these decisions. And you have a lot of good evaluators, coaches that are out of the game because they don't know the difference between bat exit velocity and barrel speed. But can that analyst go out to a ball game and watch that kid and compare that kid to thousands of athletes that evaluator has seen over the course of time evolve and get better and be able to project on, well, the kid's opening up a little bit here. I know when he gets with that pitching coach and A-ball, that kid's going to fix that. And his arm is lightning quick and he's got this drive and mentality and he can talk about all these things. No, and stats aren't going to tell you that unless they start getting into the life stats, right? And we start measuring like, oh, I had a bad day of sleep, so check that one. And I had a good day of sleep. I was good this day. I ate broccoli the night before. Unless we start getting into all those details, right? Then stats, no, they shouldn't play that big of a role. It should still be on the evaluator and the subjectivity of what we think an athlete can be like. And Dad, you're in the Hall of Fame. You went through all those adversities. You had to change your game and mentality probably constantly from day to day, depending. You always said you don't go out and pitch 5 days, 5 starts in a row and have your best stuff. You have one day you're good, one day you might have a great, another day you're really bad. Those 3 days in between, you got a mix and you got to learn how to pitch. But how does stats and analytics teach you that? So
they don't. I've got a lot of friends, Todd, that are no longer in the game of baseball because they're scouts. They've lost because of the analytics in the game. And I understand where you're saying, but you know what? I could have 5 games in a row and you say, had your best stuff. What is your best stuff? You don't know. You don't know. I mean, if I'm a hitter and I'm 0 for 10 and all of a sudden, because the pitcher's making some nasty pitches on me, and finally, he hangs a curveball and I hit the heck out of it. Well, I'm now 1 for 11, but you know what? My last out, my last pitch, my last hit was a home run, whatever. So now you're 1 for 1. That's the way you have to look at it. What I did in one game doesn't mean I'm going to do that well in the next game. It's the adjustments you have to make. A little disappointing to see Cole taken out in the 3rd inning when he admitted he didn't have his best stuff. Well, guess what? You have to find your best stuff. I don't like that. I'm surprised Aaron Boone, didn't say, hey, we need you right here. It's a 3-1 ball game. We're not out of this. Get back on that mound and attack. Do what you do best. But you could almost see it in his eyes. He said, I'm out. And I'm sad to say New York media is going to eat him up all winter long on that.
Yeah, I agree. That's the part that I think analytics, you can have these numbers that maybe show the determination and show pressure points and things, but that subjectivity, the evaluation of an athlete, the dig deep part, that's the part we're not going to get into. So what I want to talk about is the technology and how companies are educating today's parent and youth athlete to go out and use today's technology, because there are some great tools out there, but use that in a way that's going to help your game improve and understand what you're doing, along with helping the community of coaches and scouts and baseball and sports, as this pushes well beyond baseball, on how to use today's technology when capturing metrics on athletes to help them get noticed, get recruited, get developed properly, and everything else. Because there's so many tricks to being able to manipulate today's sensors, radar usage, and things like that. So I've got an expert that's going to come on. He's the owner of Pocket Radar, and we're going to just talk a little bit about I'm radar certified now. And when I went through this course, I learned so much. I wish I could go back when I was scouting and apply what I learned just in capturing velocities off of pitchers and raw arm velocities from shortstops to first base. I would have been more accurate in my readings, which then would have translated to more accurate velocity readings on my reports. And maybe there were, I could think about some players that I probably sat, 20 feet off to the right side, say at Blair Field in Long Beach at an area code game, and stuck up my radar gun thinking I'm capturing the proper velocity reading on a pitcher. But in reality, I'm getting that pitcher's ball to cross through the beam a little bit. I'm getting maybe the last 20 feet of flight. I'm putting my radar gun back in my bag because he's 85. Had I just shifted 20 feet over and been online, now I'm seeing 87, 88, 89. Now maybe that kid's a prospect to me. So there's different things that can be done in an indoor cage setting, in working with pitchers and hitters, and then also on a scout or evaluator's capture of those metrics. And so we're going to bring Steve on, and he's a good guy. He's got a pretty cool story to his life as well, which I think will be entertaining for all of us. He's started up a lot of .coms, a good business guy, but someone I really trust and I like being around. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. Dad, it's great to have you back and good to see you again. You look good.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Dave, great to see you again. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
See y'all. You be safe. Hi, I'm Todd Blyleven, the CEO here at the Scout Hub. We're really excited to be able to offer you this new product called the Athlete Resume. It gives you the opportunity to not only add your player information, highlight videos, game schedule links, analytical metrics, and so much more, but also allows you to validate what you're putting in there in terms of your metrics and add in other information from your other player pages. So if in baseball you have a player page with perfect game or PBR, you can take your top metrics and add those metrics into your athlete resume and validate those metrics by linking back to your PBR or perfect game player page. This gives coaches a full access to your athletic profile. We're super excited to be able to help you showcase your skills, just like if you were to go get a job and you got to provide that resume to your employer. We're providing you the opportunity to provide the athlete resume to those college coaches and your own coaches to just learn more about your game, who you are, and give them a chance to come out and watch you play. The Scout Hub wishes you the very best of success, and we're super excited to be able to offer this product to you to help you succeed.